This week on Hope City Overtime, we conclude our Roman series with a look at what it means to build each other up. We talk about carrying each other's burdens, setting healthy boundaries. This is one you're going to want to like and subscribe. Let's get it.
Welcome to Hope City Overtime, a weekly podcast where we take a little more time to dive into Sunday's message. And Pastor John has a theme song for us today.
I don't.
You already forgot it?
I completely forgot it.
Well, if you had been here 10 minutes ago when we weren't recording.
That's that after lunch coffee.
I know, because last week we were talking about jingles, and then you just came.
I had like
with
three,
one.
and I just can't remember one of them now.
Man, well.
You have to use that voice memo notes.
Welcome to Overtime, where we have no theme song for you today. But we do have Pastor John and Pastor Michaela here. This week was our last week of the Romans series, which some ways I feel like we've been in Romans forever. And in some ways I'm like, but we just started Romans 9 weeks ago. And we were finishing out this idea of unity and the concept of what it means to be God's holy people, looking at that idea of people. And one of the things that I know as you were writing it, you said was like really heavy in your gut. And one of the points we kind of brought out in unity was that to build one another up, we have to carry each other's burdens. So before we get spiritual, what's the heaviest thing that you've tried to lift on your own, or a time that someone came along and helped you carry something really heavy, physically heavy?
That's a good question.
I feel like it happens all the time at my house. So
yeah. I feel like you're also like super strong, but kind of sneaky, super strong. Like,
I am. I try not to let people know my strength, because then what if they take advantage of it?
Yeah.
No, probably I've tried to lift tractors, or like garden tractors. Not real, they are real, but smaller tractors in order to get them onto things, or so I had just gotten 2 garden tractors at an auction about a month ago. And so pushing those onto the ramps for our trailer, those were a lot to lift. So because one of them had the transmission locked.
Yeah.
It's a smaller tractor. So my husband and I are dabbling into competition tractor pulling. So we're going to be part of the garden tractor league. And
you're competing, right?
Yeah. So we're competing next year. Actually, potentially I'm starting in a couple weeks, but that's okay. It's beside the point. But garden tractors are just smaller. They almost look like old-fashioned lawnmowers, ride-on mowers. So exciting stuff.
Cool. And you can lift one of those.
Yeah,
not me.
Pretty fun.
I mean, I've never tried. What about you?
It's always furniture, because furniture is deceiving. Sometimes you pick up furniture like, oh, this is super light, which has happened to me. What has also happened to me is like, oh, this is super light. You go to pick it up, you're like, oh, wait, no, somebody made this out of granite. And so that happens to me all the time at my house with my wife's propensity to buy really old, heavy furniture.
Yeah, that's like real wood. It's not particle board or whatever.
Not to mention, I had said what you had written in the notes for Jess's thing, like old things are heavy, whenever I was talking about the piano. And then Justin said at the end, he's like, I took offense to that. I'm old. Does that mean I'm heavy? And I was like, oh my gosh, I knew that.
So what I'm hearing is Justin has admitted that he's old.
Yeah.
And heavy.
Yep.
And probably not because he's old.
This is what happens. Justin's at youth camp right now. So
we get to roast him.
Yeah. P.S. Pray for youth camp. I can't think of things heavy that I lift. Like, I moved about 4.5 years ago, but you and Joey did a lot of the brunt work of the heavy lifting of my furniture.
Up the stairs.
Yeah. Walk up. And I moved that furniture around my house. So I guess maybe sometimes I get the urge to redecorate, and I forget that I have neighbors underneath me, and I just move furniture.
Two little moving tips. First, furniture movers are lifesavers.
Yes.
If you get those little things that slide underneath
I
the
do
legs,
have those, the sliders.
move them all over your house. Not a big deal. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing is moving straps. Have you ever seen moving straps? So you attach to large things, and then it just distributes the weight a little bit easier. This is not U-Haul Weekly, but if you're moving, 2 little hacks.
Another thing is keep your stuff hung up, and then just bag it in like a trash bag and hang the things over the little hooks of the hanger. So much easier to set up your closet.
Yeah. Get your moving tips here, guys.
That's right.
Exactly. I hope to not move again for a really, really long time.
One called Move to Germany. We're looking for
we're looking for some people.
I don't understand, but it's fine.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
we had one of our global partners with us this week.
Oh, right, at North.
Yeah, and he's been, the Lord just placed on him the development of 2 churches in the next year. So he was asking,
Cool.
basically saying, if you know anybody wanting to move to Germany, we need some workers.
Cool.
So,
And if you were at West and didn't get to hear from him, don't worry.
yeah.
You will get to hear some of that message. But yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that
No,
part.
it slipped my mind.
But Germany sounds nice if it's cool right now. Just hot. This is after lunch. Youth camp left today. We're just hanging out. We should probably get to content in the message.
Yeah.
But carrying each other's burdens. What do you think are some of the obstacles today to living life where we carry each other's burdens? Not getting into overcarrying and undercarrying. We'll get there, but just like in general.
Yeah, division seems to be our front foot in 2025. We lead with what separates us. So it's tough to carry people's burdens when you're just focused on why they look different, why they act different. And I think it's a ploy of the enemy. It's the reason why so many people come to the faith and still live in hyper isolation. So yeah, I would say the things that divide us make it difficult to carry one another's burdens.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer.
I think something that's been weighing on my heart a lot lately is that we were never designed to be this accessible. And whenever it comes to burden carrying, just sharing those burdens and getting to hear about them, we are so accessible with our phones, and we have such an abundance of knowledge of what's going on around us that sometimes I think it's overwhelming. And I think that can actually be a disadvantage at times, because whenever you're a carer and you wear your heart on your sleeve, it's hard because you feel emotionally burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Because I think what also happens with that is we confuse knowing someone else's burdens with carrying their burdens, because we do live in a world where like you can read so much bad news everywhere. Had no idea we were going to head this way, but you stumbled across something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And like, sometimes we think that just because we know it's happening, or we know and we've said a prayer about it, like I'm not saying this to come down on that. That's not the same as those burdens of the people that we're in community with that God's asking us to come alongside and help carry. But we can kind of get to a point where it's like, yeah, this person's dealing with this and this person this, and I saw this online, and it feels like we're carrying it, but we haven't actually done anything to help lift their burden, at
Right.
least like that they would experience and understand.
I also think it's not properly taught. You know, I am a professional mover at this point. I've moved my house, I feel like 7 times more than I would like to, but a ton. I've moved a ton. And I had to learn how to lift. You have to learn how to pack. You need to learn how to organize. You need to learn how to pack a truck. I can't tell you how many times people don't know how to pack a truck.
It's true. It's like Tetris.
It
It's
is.
not that hard, people.
No.
Depends on your personality type.
It's true.
Small boxes. But I say that all to say, like, there's a point where, because it's not being taught, because it's not, like, people fall into toxic forms of weightlifting if they don't know how to bend with their knees and lift with their knees and not stretch your back. So I would say the same thing is one of the issues now. We don't talk about it a lot. We don't teach it. We don't showcase how to do it in the life of others. We just expect people to learn by osmosis. And I don't think this is one of those things. This isn't one of those, well, I caught this. I don't think that works when it comes to carrying each other's burdens. It's something that needs to be taught through good mentorship and discipleship.
Yeah.
It's true. And a lot of the heavy burden carrying happens behind closed doors. So I think that a lot of people can't learn by example, because it's happening in your personal prayer life when you're fighting in the heavenlies for people, and giving people access to that or teaching them how to practically. I think that's so needed in today's world.
So burden carrying 101. I mean, I know watching a podcast is not the same thing as discipleship, but if you wanted to give people kind of an overview or some practical, like, here's what it looks like, how would you start that class?
I would really point them to this message, at least as a starting point. I think understanding the nuance between the difference between load and burden, which did a phenomenal job this week, kind of communicating, like, we all have a personal load to carry. Why that's important is because if we're not personally responsible for the load that we've been designed to carry, then everything feels like a burden and we're messed up. Like then nobody can properly lift. I think burden carrying is done in community. I love the picture of the paraplegic, which I talked a little bit about Sunday, the paralyzed man, and his mat was carried by 4 people. It's impossible to carry one person with a mat like that. That's an impossibility. You need other people. And I think sometimes that's a challenge that's not properly taught. And then how do we carry burden and keep confidence is also a big one. There are people who might be good at carrying burdens, but they're not good at keeping their mouth shut. So I'm not going to lend to some of the burden that I carry. I think 101, we also have to talk about the shame that sometimes the enemy puts in. Like I made this comment Sunday. We think that burden is always sin, but yet there are times where the Lord puts heavy things on us in order to see us stretch outside of our capacity. And we often think that, well, the call of that is I just need to get broader shoulders, or you need to call people into community and lead them through what this weight that God's called you to lift. So, I mean, I know that was like 5 things, but I do think that there's a practical way. I don't think it's complicated. I think it's sticky and I think it's ugly. You got to know when to say no. You got to know when to say yes. You got to know what that sounds like, that commitment level. When people ask me to pray, it's almost an invitation to step into some of that burden. That immediately triggers a response of everything I'm about to commit to, I'm committing to. So if you're asking me to pray, usually if I can, I'll pray right then. Or the minute you leave, I'm praying in my head because I want to commit to that.
Yeah.
But if the burden's a little heavier, there's often like, hey, we just really need to talk, Pastor John. If I say yes to that, then I'm seeing it through reworking my schedule, making sure that because now I'm stepping into that process. So I think commitment matters too. We can be here all day though, but
I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I think we also have challenges learning to let people know what our burdens are. So like, I think there's a challenge in needing to be taught how to carry someone else's burden. But there's the flip side of a lot of us are living in this place where we are terrified of letting people know the weight of the burdens that we're carrying. Sometimes because there may be shame associated with it. Sometimes just because we live a life where we're on social media and everyone's life looks perfect and we don't want to bring people down, or we feel like that's, to use that load and burden thing, like we feel like the burden is the load that we're supposed to be carrying on our own. How do you think we can combat that? Like, how would you, similar 101 kind of concept, teach people to let people in to help carry their burdens?
So Paul, in both of these passages, because we actually spoke, we kind of navigated through a passage in Galatians and a passage in Romans. And in both cases, there's this verbiage of get over yourself, right? You notice that in both those examples, he's like, don't think of yourself more highly than you should. And then
Don't think you know everything.
Don't think you know everything. So I do think that at the end of a lack of a vulnerability, at the root of that is pride. This idea that I got it all together so I can't, I try my hardest to be within the boundaries of health. I try to be vulnerable for the sake of painting a picture that nobody has it 100% together. Like, I think that that's a misnomer. So I think Paul's quick to like, no, you're going to need help. Get over yourself, right? Yeah. Don't paint this picture that you belong on this pedestal because you got it all figured out. You don't. And so I think that that's a huge way to get over the obstacle of vulnerability. We need each other. If you don't experience burden, that heavy weight, I would just argue you're probably outside of the will of God for your life. There are seasons where he calls you to heavy lifting. So to say I never have burden, so I don't need anybody, I just think you're not in the direction, the directional line of what the Lord would have for your life.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of yesterday's sermon was whenever we talked about Paul asks the Lord to supernaturally align his heart to, be able to carry other people's burdens. And I think that that's a great starting point because it allows the Lord to soften our hearts. And looking back on everything yesterday, a practical way I would say we can start the path of sharing each other's burdens is actually the way that we invite people to Sunday in the park or Sunday at the park. It's one, you start interceding for people, and then praying on other people's behalf, and then two, investing in them and spending time with them so you get to know them on a deeper level, but also let them know that you value them. And then third is invite them to the foot of the cross together, because if you're not pointing them back at the foot of the cross, what are you doing in the first place? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. Whenever we were going through our worship time, I was like, that's exactly what carrying each other's burdens is. And that's exactly what we're doing with the sticky notes too, because we're having burdens for people to get to hear the name of Jesus and go to this amazing service too. So
yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I feel like this is backtracking a little bit, but before we move off of sharing our burdens, I think to your point about pride, comparison falls in there too.
Absolutely.
And I was having a great conversation with someone in the lobby at West this week who was sharing some difficult stuff that they were walking through. And I love being able to pray with people and walk with them through some things. And then they heard something else that was going on with someone else in the congregation and immediately apologized for sharing something that they're like, oh, that's not a big deal anymore. And I kind of corrected them gently in the moment and was like, no, I mean, on the scale of these two things, like yours is not as catastrophic maybe as theirs, but it's a burden that you're walking through, that you're feeling. And it was the right thing to share it. Like, I do think we compare and then get into this pride of like, oh, well, they have harder things going on. Like, I shouldn't share this. I shouldn't burden someone. But so often, like, that's what community is. We all share. Yeah. We might not be at the same level of, like, it might not be a terrible diagnosis, but it could be a really heavy issue that you're walking through at work, or just knowing that part of community doesn't mean that when you hear a burden that you think is heavier than yours, that doesn't mean you also have something that you need help carrying. I know I fall into that trap sometimes, like, oh, I don't want to bother them because there's all this other stuff going on. But
yeah, that's that Galatians 6 passage that we communicated, that comparison is one of the things that keep us from being able to carry one of those burdens.
Yeah. So we can be bad at carrying in two ways. And I feel like you did the brunt of this work. So I'm talking to you as expert Michaela here. We've got over carrying and under carrying. Yeah. Which one, I know we all fall into both at different times. Which one do you guys tend to err on the side of? Or are you just perfect, healthy burden bearers?
No. I think all my life I struggled with over carrying. Mm-hmm. However, about 4 years ago when I first started here at what was Hope, now Hope City, I started the process of under carrying. And so because I was so hurt and I was walking through a season of just trauma, and I was just trying to keep people at arm's length and just so I wouldn't be burned again. And I feel like the Lord has been slowly but surely allowing me to have a softened heart in that aspect. But I definitely still overcarry with the people that are close to me, and I'm working on those boundaries. But definitely a work in progress. So,
can I ask a follow-up question before we move on? I think there are seasons where, like, you walked through a season and you've shared about it on the podcast. Yeah. So I hope it's okay that we're referencing it. Where your mom and your brother both died. It was a lot. Like, I do think there are times when the burden's so heavy, we don't have the capacity to carry someone else's at that time. But then what I feel like you're sharing is, it was as you were walking out of that place that then undercarrying kind of became a defense mechanism almost. Yeah. How do you sense when that shift is happening? Because there are times, like in the middle of grief, you may have a time where you just need to be carried.
Yeah.
And that's the season, and that's fine. So I don't want people to hear, like, you need to be figuring out you're an undercarrier if really what it is like you're just being carried right now. How do you sense that shift to know when you've gotten out of this place where I'm really at capacity versus?
Yeah. Well, whenever you're in a season like that, my 2022, I look back and I genuinely don't remember Henry, my oldest. I don't remember his first year of life. I look at pictures and I'm like, I don't remember that. And I really feel like I was just in the most pure form of survival mode. And, having that and then going through a second trimester miscarriage later that year and losing also multiple other family members on top of that. It just feels like that was just such a year of darkness. And I remember the next year, 2023, yeah, it started. And I just remember feeling like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And I just remember waking up one day and saying, you know what, this is going to be okay. And I think just pressing into that and acknowledging that you don't have to move on from it, or you don't have to make light of what you've been through, but rather you get to press on and still live with it to help other people. That's what helped me. And it's not a burden for other people knowing what you went through. But in my case, it felt like every time I would talk to someone, it was like, I mentioned this yesterday, it was like the slanted head, like, how are you doing? Like, you doing okay? And
I'm
I
so
hated
bad about
it.
the head slant.
Oh my goodness, it was the worst. And just getting sick and tired of that. It was just like, you know what? I'm just going to unplug for a little bit. And once I recognized that light at the end of the tunnel, I was like, okay, this is whenever the Lord is preparing my heart for something new. So
Yeah, I think that's helpful because sometimes we are being disobedient and undercarrying, and sometimes we're just in survival mode.
Yeah.
So just kind of being sensitive to the Holy Spirit as that season's changing. What about you? Which one in this season do you tend to err?
I've always kind of tended to err on the carrying too much, over carrier. But that's kind of because of the way that I'm gifted at, what I believe the Lord's done in me. If you've been with us for any amount of time, we talk through APES giving. And
That's the shepherd tendency.
Yeah, the gift of the apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherding teacher. And I tend to lean into the shepherding giftings. So that is a sign of unhealthy shepherds, is when they begin to overcarry. A rule of thumb that I've kind of navigated is size matters. The amount of people matter. And so when I'm unhealthy in my burden carrying, I'm trying to take a lot of people a short distance. I can only take a lot of people a short distance. But when I'm healthiest, it's because I'm really close to several people and we're doing life together. And that barometer has really helped me kind of know when I'm moving into unhealthy, is when those that are close, that small group, tends, like, I isolate myself a little bit from them in order to make space for a lot more that I'm, can't carry. So it's a little bit tricky within the scope of my position as anybody who's a leader. There's times where you feel like you have to, but I would argue just the best leaders produce leaders who know how to carry. And that's kind of the season that we've even been navigating as a team, where how do we produce more shepherds to kind of carry the weight in a healthier way.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm an overcarrier. I admitted that basically the second we got to this section of the sermon. I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know this is where I struggle the most. I do think some of it, you're going to find more of that in caretaking kind of professions. So
Nurses,
as pastors,
doctors,
nurses, doctors. I think you find it in parents, it draws that out some too. But for me, the question, I didn't even learn this about myself, but the question my close friends have learned to ask me, because I have a group of friends who are all in ministry, and we'll kind of check in. And literally one of the things that we ask each other is what are you carrying right now? In your church community, what are you carrying in your family? And then the follow-up for me always as a how are you doing health-wise is, what does your Sabbath look like right now? Because to your point, sometimes we can't control the amount that comes. Things don't always get spaced out when you're in a community. But if I can say, no, I am disconnecting. For me, if it's not 190 degrees outside, I like to get outside on Fridays and not have my phone with me and call it Fresh Air Friday. That's the sign that everyone has learned to be if you're doing that, I think you're probably in a healthy burden-bearing place.
Yeah.
But if you've gotten to the point where you can't lay it all down to spend a day outside with Jesus, let's examine what's going on there and why you're not able to do that. So those are my little tells. And thank the Lord for friends who learn to recognize your tells before you do.
Amen.
it's true.
It's really nice. So overcarrying, which I guess we just kind of all talked about a little bit because that's our thing. what are some things that you would tell people to look out for to help recognize if they've been overcarrying, especially if they've been doing it for years and years, and maybe they think of that as the norm instead of unhealthy?
Yeah, I think that knowing people's issues isn't caring and letting them know what the difference is. Like, you can know about people's issues and pray for them, but also you can't have someone's emergency be your emergency. What's that saying? It's like your emergency doesn't constitute
Urgency on my part or something like that. I don't know.
But
It's
anywho,
close.
it's something along those lines. But
That's enough for you to Google it.
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. But I think that once you acknowledge the difference between caring versus carrying, that's whenever you get into that healthy place. And I think some people, they're just like, I feel so bad for this person going through this. And it's like, yes, but we're also designed to have a little bit more investment towards the people who are closer to you. And trust me, they're being prayed for like more than you can possibly realize. So I think that's one of the things I try to tell people. It's like, yes, it's good to care for people, but caring is a little bit more than that. And you can't carry everyone. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, strong ears and a loose tongue are good signs that you're overextended. If you just can't help but listen and hear and kind of are into everybody's business, there's a good chance that it's unhealthy. If
Are you
can't-
calling me out for overhearing your phone call with Joey earlier?
Wow.
if you can't control your tongue, I think that's a bigger sign. Just those moments where you find yourself, I'm so frustrated with Sally, and you're randomly talking to somebody who doesn't know Sally or can't control what's happening to Sally, has nothing to do with Sally. If you can't control your tongue, that's a really good sign that you're over carrying. So I think that's important.
I do think it can become an identity too. Like, so just figuring out, which can be tricky because it's a little different for everyone, but whatever that self-examination looks like, to be like, am I getting value from being reliable? Am I getting value from knowing that people know if they need something, call Ashley, she's going to get it done? Or am I getting my value from being a child of the Most High God
Yeah.
and responding as he asks me to take other people's burdens? Because it can be the exact same activity, but with a different heart.
Yeah.
It could be overcarrying or healthy carrying. It's just a matter of, is this what the Lord is asking or not?
Well, you mentioned it earlier. Good, strong boundaries, rest, Sabbath matters. And so if you're too busy because you're carrying too many people's weight, then you're carrying too much weight. Like, there's got to be good, healthy rhythms that this lives in. Otherwise, your toxicity begins to infect other people, and that becomes scary.
Well,
Yeah.
how do you guys navigate that awkward phase of like, hey, I was caring too much, and I had this person, and then the Lord shows you, hey, you need to have this small group of people. With the outliers, like, how do you navigate those awkward conversations with them? Like, I feel like there have been people in my life that I'm like, okay, you're like my inner table, and like sometimes like that's like a trigger word for me. It's like, okay, you're in my inner table, and then I've realized, okay, this is not healthy, and like it's that awkward silence and like the slowly avoiding them. Like, it's awkward. How do you guys navigate that?
You want to go first?
It's all you.
I think it kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes if it's like a seasonal thing, like I've been really present in someone walking through a move or something with their health, something that's going to come to a close, navigating a breakup, things like that. There doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation as much as like an understanding that as this season changes and they move into a new season, they don't need me as much. And so like, I don't need to be like, we're breaking up from me carrying your burdens. I do think there are times where it is helpful to just be clear with people. Again, it depends on what the context of that relationship is, but I try to be really clear with, particularly in the church setting, like if there are people who are serving in an area that I oversee, they know there's a little bit of a different access there.
Yeah.
And when people have transitioned away from the church or transitioned out of that area, there have actually been a couple times that we've talked about like, hey, I absolutely still want to know what's going on with you. We're probably not going to be able to get together once a month anymore. And just not being over apologetic, but just kind of clear.
Yeah.
Part of what the Lord has asked me to carry is overseeing this ministry. And I'm so excited He's moving you to another place. But that means that I'm not going to be as accessible in the way that I have been.
Right. Because I feel like if this goes unaddressed and like it's that like big awkward stage, it just leans to church hurt. And I feel like it's so preventable. And a lot of leaders just don't know how to do that today.
I think it can lead to shame in leaders. We're going way off, but I think we have some people in ministry who watch. And when we don't address things like that head on, sometimes I think it's because we feel ashamed that we can't carry the weight of everything, because sometimes we get confused and think that we're supposed to be God, but only God can be God.
Right.
So I think sometimes the reason it gets awkward is that we as leaders are like, we've got our own pride and values and stuff mixed up in that. But I don't think everyone needs a conversation where you sit down and you're like, guess what? You're not at the inner table. But sometimes it is helpful just to be like, hey, I want you to know I love you. I support you. This thing is changing.
Yeah. So I don't know. Some of this is wiring. And I do think that a lot of men will go deep with a few versus many. So what I mean by that is I am clear with my expectations of me. We talk about clarity is kindness all the time. I think the person you need to be the kindest to is yourself. Like, there's no expectation in the world that I can have a table of 40 people. It doesn't even make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I have my people, and my people are my people. And shout out to my boy Kevin Hockenberry, my cousin Lewis, Kanata from time to time. But I talked to Kanata Kevin this week for an hour and a half on Sunday. Can I just tell you, there's not a lot of people that'll even pick up a phone call for on a Sunday. That just because of the nature of what's happening and where my head's at and how sensitive my heart is after pouring out for several hours. Someone says the wrong thing in that moment and I'm broken. So you said inner table or there's an expectation in John Hernandez that there's about 4 or 5 people on that table. Doesn't mean that there's not other tables and there's not other places in relational, but I just need to be real with myself. These are my boys. Now, there have been seasons where we've had the shift and change, life seasons but that's not one that I shuffle people in. That expectation is clear to me. Outside of that, then there's a group of other people that I really love that I do life with. Again, this is not everybody who watches. This is a pastor or in ministry or in leadership, but for maybe those who you do. I love our team. I do. Like we use terminology like that. And I know some people are afraid of it, but I need Michaela, Dom, John, Ashley, all of them that have left me for camp. Like I need them all. David is on the forefront of my mind right now because he's about to he just had a baby, beautiful baby girl, shout out Ward family, beautiful baby girl, healthy. And so he's in the forefront of my mind. I love David. You can tell me, John, you shouldn't say that when it comes to team members. I don't know how you do ministry and leadership. God bless you. The way that we do it is all in. I also know that the expectation is clear that there are seasons where God shifts staff. If that expectation is clear in me, then when that season comes, I'm not shocked and broken and hurt because they're leaving me. No, that's the nature of development in ministry and space. So again, I say all of that to say, so many times the reason we're constantly in that perpetual place of hurt is not because we weren't clear with the expectations of them. We weren't clear with the expectations of us. P.S. Those expectations also come with an understanding of access.
Yeah.
Like how much am I giving? How much am I giving? And so we get a little flustered sometimes because we don't have the right expectation for what true relationship looks like. I can be really close to a person and they're not in my inner circle, and that's fine. Like that's fine. So I don't know if that helps at all or even answers the question because we asked the question about 10 minutes ago and that coffee, again, I need that coffee to kick in and I haven't even had it yet. But I do feel like being clear with what your expectation is when it comes to relationship is critical. We have gone out to coffee or dinner, Jess and I, since since the merger, we've gone out to coffee or dinner with probably 10 to 15 couples. I would love to believe that every last one of them are my friends and we're close and we're deep and it's great. But the truth is, it's just an impossibility. Doesn't mean that I don't care about them. Doesn't mean that I don't, from a pastoral place, I'm considering where their spiritual development is. I'm trying my hardest to get them connected, not just to Jess and I, but to other people. But not everybody it gets the same access. I think that's unhealthy, an expectation to put on ourselves.
Yeah. And I love the way Jesus modeled this.
Of course.
Because you just don't think about it. You read about all the miracles that he did, all the people that he healed. And I remember that moment when I realized if there were that many people there were other people there who were desperate for healing and didn't receive it that day, who were desperate for that moment, that encounter with him, but weren't the one that he stopped because he felt the power going out and the healing. And times, there was one particular time, I think it was in Mark, where he had gone out to be with the Father, which he did a lot. Like, he would slip away from the crowds, and the disciples came and were like, we need to go back. A lot of people are looking for you. And he was like, no, I've spent time with the Father and now we're going here. It's very freeing when you realize Jesus disappointed people, because I think sometimes when it comes to carrying burdens, overcarriers are more concerned with not disappointing people than with doing what the Lord is asking them to do. Comes out of a place of love. But I've been there, and
sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's a place of ego.
Yeah.
Because my ego is stroked when you call me and say you need me, right?
But then it's just so freeing when you're like, man, people were disappointed by Jesus.
Yeah.
And he was perfect.
Yeah, it's funny too, because we make a big deal of the 3, right? So Jesus had his 12 and then he had his 3. And I've even heard people give them nicknames and all this stuff. You never really see Jesus making the distinction until he makes the distinction. Until he's like, you 3 come with me. And we're like, oh my gosh, he took 3. He's playing favorites. I often wonder if the 9 were like, oh, he's playing favorites again. And if Jesus had to sit them down and say, hey, no, this is the I don't see it. I just think he did life, and the expectation was there will be some that are close and that's okay. And there's some that are closer and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's overcarrying. What about undercarrying? What signs would you ask someone to look for if they suspect that they may be undercarrying burdens around them?
Extreme isolation. If you find yourself alone, there's a good chance it's because you didn't want to carry. You weren't involved or engaged in carrying others' burdens, and it's sad because you often find isolation. It often makes itself known when you need somebody to help you carry. If you're the person who always says no to moving, it stinks when it's your turn to move, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the same when it comes to undercarriers. Unfortunately, when your marriage falls apart and you're looking around for community, it's a tough time to find it. The best time to build community is before a crisis. The most revealing time of the health of the community you built is during crisis.
Yeah. Questions, easy ones to start off with. Where are you serving and what group are you in? I mean, for me, because that's whenever something does happen, those are your people. You're going to start a meal train with your group or with wherever you serve. And those are going to be naturally the people that their proximity to you is what allows you to carry their burdens. And if you're not serving anywhere, or if you're not in a group, then it's like, oh, okay, now I understand. This is you not caring enough. So,
okay, maybe I just didn't have enough coffee again, but I did say that the worst time to build community is the middle of a crisis, right? I didn't flip that around, did I? Oh,
no,
well.
I think you did.
No, you said it
Okay,
correctly.
good. Just making sure.
I'm like, did I hear it wrong?
Yeah. No, good.
Our all lack of coffee.
No, but you're totally right. Michaela, connectivity to serve, connectivity through groups, I think it's critical, specifically when you're in the middle of a crisis. Those are the people you lean into.
Yeah, something you verbalized yesterday that has been something I felt but haven't been able to put into words was in second service at North. You're like, we merged 2 churches, or we planted 2 churches in a year, and this is where we are. Do you not think that's heavy? And I was like, oh my goodness, that is so true. And I just felt like this weight is oh my goodness, that has been put into words, the the weight I felt, it's been so heavy, but so good. And I think sometimes whenever we don't appreciate the heaviness of it, of saying like, oh, like just negating everything, it's like, oh yeah, this is great and everything, and acting like it's not a big deal, I feel like sometimes it's not giving God the glory. It's just like, okay, this has been great, this is super easy. It's like, okay, yeah, but God gave you this burden for the city of Charlotte, so why are you not giving him glory where glory is due? So
Yeah, that's a really great point. Totally sidetracked me from where I was going next.
So
I'm
sorry.
Like, yeah, no, don't apologize. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Well, again, I think it goes back to the idea that all burden is bad. It's not. It's not bad. Like, there are times where God calls you to burden, and
yeah, because he says, like, this is fast forwarding to the end, but when he says, come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest, he goes on, and the next thing he says is, take my yoke upon you.
for my burden is light.
Yeah, but it is still a
burden.
Yeah. That he asks us to, like, asks us to do hard things.
And here's the truth. If this is just about me carrying the personal day-to-day load, and that's doing life, I'm just going to say, like, nothing accomplished is going to matter. It's not leaving a mark for the sake of the kingdom. I want to leave a mark for the sake of the kingdom. I've said this till I was blue in the face. Like, I'm trying my hardest to be as healthy as possible, that when I cross the line, I've given everything that I can give. I don't want to take anything with me. That means that there will be seasons of absolute weight. And I think it was jarring a little bit in the room to hear from the pulpit, no, burden isn't something that I dealt with when I was first saved. I dealt with I've been dealing with massive burden for the last year. And last week was a tough week.
Yeah.
And I had to call some people to grab the corners. Like, they had to lift me onto the roof. And if that is for some reason unspiritual to you, we're reading two different Bibles. I don't know, Jesus cut away from the crowd. He needed to cut away. He surrounded himself with men who helped him on his journey.
Well, you know what?
And he sent everybody out 2 by 2. Like, you don't go alone because you can't carry the weight I'm about to give you. So
I didn't, this may be cutting room floor because I could never figure out how to put it in the message. But what I kept thinking about is, like, Jesus on the cross literally embodied our burden.
Yep.
But someone else carried the cross for him to the place where he was crucified.
Absolutely.
So even in that moment, he was letting someone else carry the burden with him. Like,
you talk about vulnerability. The creator of the universe comes to its creation, his creation. They reject and crucify him. And then he makes himself vulnerable to the point that it requires them to carry his cross. And we're afraid of telling our neighbor what's really happening.
yeah.
It's true.
Just think it's a beautiful picture. It's why Paul's quick to be
All
like,
of that was burden. God asked him, the Father asked him to carry. Like, yeah. So it's not like he messed up. And that's why he was under such a heavy weight.
well, and worse, it was burden that we couldn't carry. Like, it was our sin that was placed on him. He was made sin because of my sin. So, yeah.
I feel like sometimes whenever we feel a burden for someone and we're praying and intervening for them, it's almost like God owes us an explanation, like, for like, okay, like, but nothing bad is happening, or like, they didn't tell me something was going on. So it's like, God, why are you doing this? And we get upset whenever, like, we don't see, like, oh, someone died, or like see a post on Facebook, sorry, this happened. And it's like, wait, why does God owe us something for doing exactly what he's called us to do? And something that came to my mind while we've been talking, whenever I was in high school, I went to a beach camp, the May of junior year. And we were randomly in chapel prayer time and everything. And I had a teacher at my school that wasn't even my teacher. And the Lord called me to pray for her. It, like, could not get this burden off my heart. I was praying on my face for over 3 hours for this woman. And I go to school after spring break ends, and I go to my chemistry teacher's room, and I was like, Miss Martis, what happened to Miss Hilliard? Because that's her daughter. And she's like, nothing. Why? And I was like so upset with God at that moment. I was like, oh my gosh. And like, she had been walking me through like mere, we were like, I don't know. It was a public school, but I love that I had so many Christian teachers. But, so she was like, no, Michaela, I had explained to her what happened. She's like, do you understand what could have happened if you didn't obey the Lord? And he's like, sometimes we don't see what, she said, sometimes we don't see what happens in the heavenlies when things are going on. And that stuck with me to this day, because if I can't give the Lord my obedience and continue to expect something from my obedience, like, what am I doing? My intentions are impure, So
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great point. Sometimes we never find out. A lot of times we're like, maybe later we'll understand.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was building each other up requires carrying each other's burdens. Then we talked about living in harmony, which I love that that's kind of come up every single week of this Unity series. But this one, this idea of the piece 433. So if you didn't watch the message, there's a song that came out in the 50s that the whole point of it was that for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, no musician played any music. And the idea was that the composer wanted people to recognize the music in the soundscape around them, that look, it's not pure silence. It's basically impossible unless you're in like a constructed space to be in pure silence.
And they use it for torture in some countries.
That's crazy. And so then we talked about like some of the reactions of the crowd in that moment. What do you think your reaction would have been, not on a metaphorical level, like just if you had been in the room the day that 433 premiered, how do you think that you would have responded?
Oh, immediately it's the guy complaining about the guy drinking water.
Yeah, you did say that.
I would have
during
been
sex
like,
service.
no, I want to enjoy this. There's something happening here creatively. Like I want to appreciate, why is that guy chewing so loud? Like that would have been my response.
I don't know. I feel like it depends on the mood. Like I would love to think that one side of me would be like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I do understand this. But then the other part of me would be like, I got a sitter for this. I paid all this money just to watch Home Slice up there, just sitting there at his piano. Yeah. I would be so annoyed.
Would you actually think, because it became such a controversial piece, to be able to say you were in the room the first night that it was ever played was probably like a big bragging point from.
And all the people that complained later, they're like, I was in that room.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I still got the ticket stub.
You know that slamming door that you heard 2 minutes in? That was me.
That water bottle was my Purina or whatever it is.
I did feel that one I found this YouTube clip where you could actually see all these people answering in the lobby that day, like how they felt about it. And I did feel a little called out by the water bottle thing, because I could think of someone whose drinking annoys me on a regular basis. And I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, for calling me out in this moment.
It is
definitely someone on the team. But I love them, and I'm not going to divulge who it is. But
they may or may
it's
not be at youth
Emma.
camp.
Emma's got the only one that carries a water bottle. No,
I am not going to share who
it's
it is.
definitely Justin.
Anyway.
Justin?
Because he never drinks out of a reusable water bottle, so his water bottle's always crinkling.
Yeah, they do crinkle. It's Justin's water bottle. I knew it. I knew it.
We love you, Justin.
We're roasting him. It's just his water bottle. It's not him. But the Lord called me out, not him.
You're gonna feel even worse about it now.
No, we've worked through it, Jesus and I. But I think if I were in the room, I would have this feeling of like, is this a joke? I kind of want to be in on it. So I think I would have enjoyed it, but it would have been almost this kind of twisted.
Yeah.
Look at how annoyed everyone else in the room is. This is kind of funny. Like, I don't know what that says about me as a person. But I think I would have kind of enjoyed being in the moment. But it was interesting to hear all of these different and very individual responses, to think about when we do talk about it as a metaphor, us as the church. I do think we sometimes show up and we're expecting this like beautiful performance that we're taking in instead of being part of, and what we're left with is a room where someone's got crinkling water bottles and someone else is sneezing. And because that was one of my pet peeves in school, if anyone sneezed behind me in class, I was like, but like,
if someone sneezes in my car, I have to roll down the windows, and my family makes fun of me for it all the time.
I'm sure at some performance of 433, there were people sniffling and sneezing in the room. Like, it's just not necessarily what our expectation would be. What are some of the responses that you may struggle with on that spiritual level of like, not just sitting in a concert hall, but when it is like, wait a minute, this is it? Like, do you have one that you tend to struggle with? Do you think you can have reached a place where that's not true anymore? Like, just curious.
You go first.
I do think that I can get very like the man with the water bottle. I can get distracted by one thing. It's a ploy the enemy can really use on me. And it's not like it's not something that annoys me, but if there's like one theological issue that I'm really passionate about right then, or even something that can be happening in the political scape, I can let knowing that someone disagrees with me about that get in the way of the beauty of what's happening. Not that we have to ever reach a place of agreement, but I think that can be my tendency if I'm not healthy, if I don't check myself, to miss the goodness of everything because there's one person that's just doing something in the way that I don't like, that I can lock in on, just out of total honesty.
What about you, PJ?
I don't know. I'm struggling a little bit because even like,
You're allowed to be one of those people who's like, no, I love all of it.
no, I mean, I do. I think I'm one of those people who find a place of appreciation quicker than most. Like I can see the beauty in other people's giftings quicker than most. I think sometimes my distraction is I'm too concerned about what people think about me versus
So you're like, I don't
being
want to
focused on the whole.
Yeah,
So
that's a great thought.
that leaves me at a place where I'm like more concerned about what they think about me than I am concerned about what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like the gift that they're displaying. I don't know what that says about me, but I mean, in all honesty, again, I don't think that's a huge issue in me, but if there's going to be a distraction,
no, these are
that'll
just
be,
kind of tendencies because as we mature and grow, like we do want to get to that place of appreciation faster, but doesn't mean there aren't moments where you get that tendency.
Yeah. I normally can see the gifting and appreciate what God is doing in somebody relatively quickly, but when I'm not there, it's probably because
I
of
can
that.
when they're further away across the room. It takes a little longer sometimes when
When
they're
they're really
right
close.
up. Yeah.
Especially when you know all their junk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I feel like a lot of people don't know about me is I love silence. And John Wayne does not. So
I'm just laughing because I'm like, the last time I talked to you, the dog was barking. I could hear the
I think it's because I never get it. It's like so prized right now. But I remember growing up ever since middle school, every Monday after school, I would be driven to Calvary in Greensboro. And Holly and Troy, my youth pastors, would be
Shout
working.
out Holly and Troy.
Gotta love them. And so texted with her
jingle.
yesterday. But anywho, I would sit in the auditorium of Calvary back when they had the red carpets and on the stage, and I would just sit in pure silence and everything would be dark. You can't hear hardly anything. Sometimes you would hear beeping from something left on in the sound booth up at the higher level, but I just loved it because I felt God so tangibly in those moments. And now I never get silence because I do have a dog that's really loud. And then I have two toddlers and I have a husband that never stops making noise, whether
And
that's
tractors.
drum or the garden tractor. Yes, no, he straight piped one of them and I was not appreciative of it. But
I don't even know what that means.
It's when they take a pipe and straighten it.
oh
So
yeah, you know,
it comes
but-
straight off the exhaust, so it's a little louder.
Yes, but I thought you were joking at first. But anywho, I almost forgot where I was going with this. Oh, so much had happened in my life whenever I became an adult. You know, I transferred from college. I immediately switched my life to start living for Jesus. I was an intern, then a ministry associate, then a ministry coordinator. Then 2 months later, I stepped into a position as pastor. And I felt whenever the dust settled, when I finally had that silence back in my spiritual life, I was like, God, what am I doing wrong? And I find myself scrambling because I wasn't used to the silence anymore. What once I sought out was now what I thought was a red flag. And I was like, wait, this isn't a red flag. This is the Lord giving me back what I had sought for so long. And I just wanted to feel his presence. And sometimes I do struggle with silence now, especially like at the office, like we'll be silent and I'm like, Jess, are you mad at me? And she's like, no, we're just working. So I struggle in that aspect, but I just find myself having these moments that feel so intimate with the Lord. And I'm just like, this silence, it takes me back to those days at Calvary whenever I would just seek it out. So I'm still struggling with the scrambling every once in a while when I'm like, okay, something bad hasn't happened in a while. What's going on? And I hadn't heard, like, I hear the Lord, don't get me wrong, but like the Lord hasn't told me to move to Africa. So like, what's going on? Why am I not hearing this stuff? So yeah,
Well, I hope he doesn't tell you to move to Africa, but
it's true.
if he
I was
does,
going to
be
text John
obedient.
Wayne saying, hey, you up for moving to Germany? But you know what? He loves Europe so much. I didn't want to test that. So
I've actually been with John Wayne in Europe.
that's true. Slovakia.
Were you on the trip?
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm the one who
He
took
led
him.
it.
Cool. So the last point of the message was building others up means that we accept each other. And that idea of acceptance is really linked to hospitality, to this idea of welcoming. But I almost hesitate to say hospitality because we quickly go to our homes and that's part of it. But hospitality is a posture that we have toward others too. So it doesn't have to happen. I'm not only hospitable to people that I invite to my home, like it can just be the way that I approach them in a public space or, anything can be hospitality if we're in the right mindset. And the church that was receiving this letter was living in a time where this was difficult. Like we're talking totally against culture. Like Roman citizens and Jewish people would not have been gathering together much, but certainly wouldn't have been welcome into each other's homes. It just didn't happen. I think we live in a place that can be similarly divided. It's just not as like cut and dry as, oh, that's a Roman citizen or, oh, that's a Jewish person. What are some of the barriers that we have to overcome today to live in this place of accepting one another that would be similar to what they were facing, but obviously we're not in the Roman Empire?
Yeah, so remember, Paul's talking this is a framework of how to navigate burden, how to build up each other. So this is the framework of your church community, right? This is the framework of what it means to be believers, brothers and sisters in the faith. I say that because I think sometimes we hear this phrase accept, and we almost got to take back the definition, right?
Because it comes right after. Because literally the verse before, he said, you've got one mind and one voice in the attitude of Christ Jesus towards one another. Therefore, accept one another just as Christ has accepted you. So I think whenever you hear therefore, this is such a youth pastor thing. You always, whenever you see therefore in the Bible, you have to ask what it's there for.
Oh, okay.
Have you never learned that?
No, whenever I think of therefore, I just think of the 3 dots because in shorthand, that's what you do.
But like, so anytime you see therefore, like I just have it trained into my head. I need to go see what was just said because this is all coming after that. And to your point, therefore, accept one another comes after Paul's prayer that you would live in harmony with the attitude as Christ toward each other. So that's a really good caveat.
Yeah, because again, we live in a culture right now that accept is acceptance is almost an ideology, right? Like I'm supposed to accept everybody's thinking and accept everybody's mindset and accept everybody's lifestyle. Yeah. And that's not what Paul's communicating, that a hospitality, once we are in one mind, once we are in one heart, once there is one message, one king, then we are to accept one another as children of God, as family members. And that acceptance even there isn't that we agree with everything, but we accept each other despite those disagreements. And again, that's why I think that picture of welcoming in is so critical. Because to your point, yes, it doesn't just have to happen at home, but historically, when someone's in your home, that was an accepting, that was an invitation. That means we cover these people. And so even when we don't agree, even when we're living in different cultural places, even when the lines have been darkly drawn outside of this construct, this community of the church, once you become a part of the community of the church, no, we're to accept each other, welcome each other, and cover each other. And I think that picture is absolutely missing. So fast forward to 2025, and I'm not arguing that, it's the exact same, but man, I would argue that we have divided among a lot more lines, right? So I'm not saying that they didn't have their disagreements and their cultural issues, but man, politically, geopolitically, culturally, culture of where someone was born, culture where somebody was raised. I laugh because we've also gotten to the point where we're actually making niches out of the things that we're divided over, right? Like, I can't tell you how many people, when I first started the conversation about what God was doing in me and the call to Charlotte, I lived in Concord. Literally, it's a 5-minute drive from my house to the Charlotte Concord line, and people acted like I was moving to Afghanistan. They're like, what do you mean Charlotte? Because there's such a division between people who live in Charlotte and some of the people who lived in Catawba, or some people who live in Mount Pleasant, and some of the
Richfield.
There you go. even at this table, Michaela's talking about straight piping garden tractors. Ashley she's got a garden on her 2-foot terrace outside of her house.
Only thanks to Billy and Lauren Hassenplan.
There you go.
Amazing. Shout out to Billy and Lauren.
Different cultures. And yet in 2025, for some stupid reason, I apologize for using such strong language, there are people who would say, if Ashley doesn't consider the goal to be a lot of land where we can farm and we can raise kids and we can garden with straight pipe gardening tractors, then Ashley's wrong. And now it's my life, not only to live and do what I'm doing, but tear down what Ashley's doing. I just think it's so polarizing that I think it's becoming more and more difficult because we're dividing over dumb things.
Yeah.
Not only can Ashley live how she wants to live within the the shadow of the skyline, but it's completely fine for Michaela to live where she lives with more acreage than the average person,
and they can blesses me with potatoes,
and they can be
ears of corn today,
and they can be great friends, and they can do life together, and they can raise their kids in the same place.
I acknowledge I'm weird.
I know, you know what I mean.
Just making sure everyone knows.
But I think that one day, 15 years from now, when Jack is 17 at that point,
Please
18,
stop.
when Jack is 18, 19, when Jack is ready to leave for college, his life will be better because Michaela was able to surround them with people who look different, that experience different things, and God is honored in all of that. Mm-hmm. So I think this is what Paul is rushing back to. No, you're taking a beautiful picture of Christ and you're skewing the color. Like this wasn't supposed to be black and white. This is supposed to be full of color and life. And that's why harmony is so critical. It's so critical.
It's true. And it reminds me of one of the first sermons we did during the merger. And we brought up the fact that in a lot of Middle Eastern cultures today, if someone were to knock on your house and come into your house, you're not allowed to ask them why they're there for a week or something like that, 3 days to a week or something. And it just baffles me because I feel like if that were to happen today in Charlotte, someone would knock on your door and be like, can I please have a place to stay? And it's like, okay, but who did you vote for? And it's like, oh, if you give me an answer I don't like, I'm not gonna let you in. And it's just
might not even let you live depending on the door you knock on.
Yeah.
Well, and we've got to go too far down this road. We've gotten so afraid. We've gotten so afraid. They don't think like me. I don't want to expose my kids. They don't think like us. I want to make sure that we're protective. I think Paul is quick to be like, you can be as afraid as you want, but if they're children of God, the motto is acceptance, that we would welcome them in. But you don't understand. They're Roman citizens. They eat different. They talk different. They have different perspectives of life. Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is whether or not they're children of God, and if they are, invite them in. Mm-hmm. So I think it's critical.
Yeah. Okay. We are at the end of the series.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with our lead pastor over here. Coming out of this Roman series, what are one or two of the things that you hope people take with them as we step into the next season?
I think there's been 3 that kind of fit each theme. So we broke this whole series down to his own holy people, that we belong to him. We're called to be holy, and that we're family. For we belong to him, the overarching picture of us as you are a child of the Most High God was overwhelming when I preached it the first week, has been overwhelming every day since. Every time I open up my Bible or my laptop to explore Logos and navigate through the Word, through the book of Romans, I am reminded that I am a child of the Most High God, and through his Spirit and through the sacrifice of his Son, those things were made available to me, not by my own work, right? So overwhelmed. I wanted everyone to walk away thinking, I am a child of the Most High God. I think I said it every week at one point or another. Then the second thought for sanctification or for holiness is that justified peace, that you've been made right, that you are not being made right, that you are not making yourself right, that you were made right. End the sentence, period. That's such an amazing picture of the sovereign grace of God. We are not right by our own merit. There's nothing we can do to deserve what we've received. That works is not the way to salvation. It's the accepting of the sacrifice that's been made. You've been justified. I think for so many people, they work their whole lives to feel like they have done what's necessary to prove that they were worth the sacrifice. Ultimately, you can work every day of your life and get it completely right, and it's still not enough. You've been made right. Love that. And then for this was harmony, that we're called to live in this place of harmony. I don't think people catch it until they visit a friend's church or visit a church in the neighborhood. And now hear me, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that Hope City is a unicorn, because there are plenty of churches, specifically even in our city, that share this, but not a distinction that we all share, and that's diversity. I go to people's houses for dinner, and sometimes we're eating with forks, and sometimes we're eating with our fingers, and sometimes we're eating with
Susan's house.
sometimes we're eating with chopsticks. Like, you just don't know. And I think that's beautiful. The beauty of different giftings, the beauty of different upbringings and culture, the beauty of how God's working in even, and I know that it's a challenge for some, but even in the fact that there's a diversity in the communicators on a Sunday. You can walk in and hear from an Ashley, come back next week, hear from a Michaela, come back next week, hear from a Justin, hear from a John. You hear from, me as the lead pastor at least twice a month if you just sit in the same service. But ultimately, there's even diversity in that. I mean, we have people who will go back and listen to all 4 messages, or at least 3 of the 4 messages, because they know they're going to get a different perspective. And that's beautiful to me. So I think those are the 3 things I pray people would take away.
I like it. Now, where are we headed?
Go.
You want to say anything else?
The scripture is just chock full through the story of Jesus about his call for us to go. This week, we start with go and reconcile. I think it kind of continues. This almost feels like harmony part 3 or unity part 3. And John's done the heavy lifting on this one, on this whole series. But I do feel a strong sense that this is directional. I think so many times as believers in the faith, we're asking, God, what's your will for us? What's your will for us? What's your will for us? I mean, he said go several times. You're going to be tired of hearing that by the time we're done with this series. There's more than enough stuff that you can do right now without a question that sits you right in the middle of God's will. And I hope people walk away from this series, the Go series, just walking in the right direction.
Somehow I knew the name of the sermon series, yet whenever he said go, I was like, oh, he's telling her to go away. I guess Ash is going off camera.
Okay, bye. All right. Well, we are kicking off Go this Sunday. Sunday at the Park is right in the middle of this series, and that is not an accident.
Nope.
So be praying over your people. If you haven't written them on sticky notes yet, show up Sunday, put their names on a sticky note. We'll be at North and West at 9 and 11, and we can't wait to see you then.
And Women's Retreat right around the corner. Registration's available online. You can find that all
it'll
out
be
there.
here
on the
before you
homepage
know
of the
it.
app.
Yeah,
And it will
homepage.
be cooler.
Yeah.
Ready.
So excited. Super bloom. It's going to be
Super
great.
bloom.
It's going to be great.
All right. See you Sunday.